Hey guys, it's Andrea from Fruitful Gardening, and today we're going to be doing some stuff with blueberries. We're going to be making something called the Blueberry Bonanza, and it's in the complete book of home preserving from Ball. So I got my blueberries washed up and all my ingredients out, and I'm just putting the blueberries in a pot. And here is the recipe. It's on page 60 of this book. And this is my favorite canning book, and so I'm going to try this recipe. It only uses 12 cups of blueberries, and it makes two different recipes. It makes blueberry syrup and blueberry butter. So for the 12 cups of blueberries, we're going to add 3 cups of water. And then we need to get the heat on and get it boiling. We're gonna boil this and smash the berries while they're in this pot. And then this is the jelly strainer that I have that I use all the time for different jellies, and it works great. You just put it over a bowl, and I think that I got this as a gift, and I think they bought it at like a thrift store or something. You just screw these little poles into the ring, and the ring is the top. And then when you go to set it over your bowl, you just unscrew it until you can get these little hooks onto the side of the bowl, and that's what holds it up. So we will be using that when the berries are done with this process. And here is the little strainer cloth that goes over, and I have used this for berries numerous times, and it is stained from all the blueberries and blackberries and different things like that I have used this for. And you just tie this little drawstring that it has so that it stays on the stand here. And the blueberries are starting to boil, so we're just going to keep mashing. And we want to bring it to a boil over high heat, and we're going to keep mashing, and we're going to set the timer for 5 minutes once it gets to a boil. And it's started boiling now, so I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. And I'm just going to keep kind of stirring it every once in a while, maybe mashing the berries every once in a while, and let this go until the timer is up. And this is turning out to be a really beautiful color. And it smells really good too. Blueberries are one of our favorite berries. And so once this is done boiling, we're going to take it off the heat, and we're going to start putting it through this strainer and just kind of putting it in there gently because it is still very hot, and the strainer is not very sturdy. It is sturdy enough to hold this and do this job, but I don't want to accidentally nudge it or hit it because it could knock off the bowl. So I'm putting this into this strainer, and we're going to let it drip strain for however long it takes. We need 5 cups of this juice to make the syrup. So the juice will make the syrup, and the berries and things will make the blueberry butter. So whatever is left in the little bag part, that's what will make the blueberry butter. And we don't want to squeeze it or anything, because then it can make the syrup really foamy if you squeeze it. So we're just going to let it drip, and I'm going to start measuring out my 5 cups of blueberry juice that I need from this. And I do love this tool. It makes straining for jelly so easy. For jelly or syrup, really. Anything that you need to strain juice out of something, this works perfect. So I've got 4 cups in the measuring cup, and I'm just trying to get this last cup that I need. And then we'll move on to the next step. And I'm just gonna go ahead and move on to the next step after this because I can get that last little bit of juice out once I take off the stuff on top off of the bowl. And this is a very messy job. They called it Blueberry Bonanza for the correct reason because there was blueberry juice and everything all over my kitchen and it stains the counters, so I had to get a really good clean on the counters to get these blueberry stains up. And so this is still really hot, but what I'm going to do is transfer this into my food processor because for the blueberry butter, we're going to put it, it says to put it in the food processor or blender and blend it up into just blend it into a fine texture. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just trying to get everything out of the pot here that I used. And I'm going to scrape out the inside of this little bag to get all of the blueberries off of there. And then I'm just going to pour this juice into my cup measure so that I can have that 5 cups that I need. And I just want to make sure I get all this juice out of here. I don't want anything to go to waste. And we had actually gone and picked these berries this morning and went to the farm, and as soon as we got back from picking berries, I got to work on this project because I knew I wanted to make some blueberry syrup this year. And now I'm just washing out this strainer. This little cloth thing, I think it's linen is what it is, and I'm just getting all the berries out of it, and I'll throw that in the wash to get it clean, but it's probably going to be purple stained still from the blueberries. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and blend up these blueberries that I have in the food processor and get it to a smooth texture. And that looks good. It's nice and smooth, so I'm going to get it back in a pot, and now we're going to add our ingredients to this to make the blueberry butter. And here's the recipe for the blueberry butter, and it tells you exactly what to put in. So it needs 3 cups of sugar, and it needs the zest of 1 lemon, and then the juice of 1 lemon. And we've also got some spices that we're going to add to this. We're going to add some cinnamon and nutmeg to this. Kind of like an apple butter that you would do, but this is with blueberries. And so it's a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. Just getting that stirred in, and I'm going to put it on a burner, and we need to use medium-high heat to bring it to a boil, and we have to stay stirring it to make sure that it doesn't burn. So this is for the blueberry syrup. This is 1 cup of water and 3 cups of sugar. And what we want to do with this is we want to boil the sugar and the water. And here I'm just stirring the blueberry butter because it's starting to get hot, and it's just like apple butter. You have to cook it because you're cooking out moisture in it. So you want it to be at a low simmer, and you want to cook out a lot of the moisture. But in doing that with the sugar in there, we don't want it to burn. So now that the sugar water for the syrup is boiled, I'm going to go ahead and add the blueberry juice, which this is 5 cups of blueberry juice. And then the recipe for the syrup does call for corn syrup. So there's 2 cups of corn syrup, and we're going to add that in here. And so the reason I was drawn to this recipe was because I could make 2 different things with 1 recipe, and I felt like that was a really good thing. There's not a lot of recipes like that for things like jellies and jams. So I was really excited to try this, and the blueberry syrup is absolutely delicious. The blueberry butter is good, but I still like apple butter better. So I'm just making sure I'm keeping an eye on that blueberry butter so that it doesn't scorch on the bottom. We already strained all of the juice out of there for the syrup, so there's not too much moisture that has to boil off of this. And so we want to get both of these to a boil, and I did add the juice of 1 lemon to the syrup, but I didn't get that on camera. But the blueberry butter is done, and they were both supposed to boil for about 35 minutes. So the blueberry butter, I started just a little bit earlier than the syrup, so it was done. And I'm going to take the jars out of the canner. I had them washed up, and I had put them in the canner so that they could sterilize. And I'm just going to get the jars out, and we're going to get them filled with this blueberry butter. And the recipe said that it would make 5 half-pint jars, which is 8 ounces of blueberry butter, and it made exactly that. And the blueberry butter has a beautiful color to it, very dark purple. So I'm trying not to make a mess, but this blueberry bonanza that happened in the kitchen today was extremely messy and sticky. Everything was very sticky. So I'm trying to keep it in the jars, not on the sides of the jars. And for both of these recipes, for the syrup and the butter, they both need 1/4 inch of headspace. So once I get all the jars filled, I'll adjust the headspace, and I'm still boiling that blueberry syrup over there on the stove. I needed to use a bigger pot, but I didn't have another pot available to use, so I have to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't boil over because it's pretty at the top. But I'm just getting these jars filled, making sure I get everything out of this pot, and I'll adjust the headspace and make sure that it's correct. And the blueberry butter did get on the rims of the jars, so of course I used vinegar, which is what I do whenever I do a canning project. And I'm just going to go through and debubble these right now, which is important. You don't want any bubbles in there. That can affect your product in your jar, that it might not stay good. It can also affect the seal if you got too many bubbles. And so I'm just wiping these with vinegar on a paper towel and making sure that I get all of the stickiness off, and especially on this jar here, I accidentally got some right on the rim, so I want to make sure that that one is very clean. So I'm getting some more vinegar to make sure that I get it clean, because we can't have anything on the rim of that jar or it won't seal. And so there's the 1/4 inch headspace, and I'm just doing a quick check, and they were all good. So I'm going to get the lids on and also get the rings on and get these in the canner. And so I'm taking out my jars that are going to be for the syrup, and I'm going ahead and putting the blueberry butter in the canner. And that can just wait there until I've got these other ones canned up. And I'm just skimming off the foam because there is a little foam on this, and that kind of happens when you're making jellies and syrups, is there might be a little foam on the top. And so you just want to go ahead and get that foam off the top. And then I'm trying not to drip. The syrup is just dripping everywhere, but I'm trying to keep it inside the little cone here that I have, the funnel. It's working out okay, but these also need 1/4 inch headspace, and I'm going to fill up all these jars. And I did end up getting 7 jars, 7 jelly jars of the blueberry syrup. And the texture on the blueberry syrup is great. It's just like a light syrup, so it's not thick like you would think of a syrup that you would buy at the store. It's kind of in between that and real maple syrup. So it's not super thin, but it's also not thick. It has a very good texture. And I got the last of it in this little jar so that I could use that to adjust the headspace. So I'm just debubbling right now. And now we're going to check for that 1/4 inch of headspace and fill where we need to. And then I'm wiping these jars again with vinegar on a paper towel just to get any sticky off of the top of those jars to make sure that our lids are going to seal properly. And we're just going to get the lids and rings on, and these are going to go in the canner also. And both of these, the syrup and the butter, need to can for 10 minutes. So once I put the jars in the canner, I will wait until it comes to a full boil, and then I'll start the timer for 10 minutes. And then once they're done, once the timer is done, I will take the lid off, let them sit for 5 minutes, and then I can take them out of the canner. And that's the procedure that it says in this ball canning book to do, so that's what I always try to do. And here they are coming out of the canner. And all of my jars sealed perfectly. They all did great. And we got 7 jars of syrup, and we got 5 jars of the blueberry butter. And so I think for 12 cups of blueberries, this was a pretty good recipe that made a lot, that made 2 different things. So I really like this recipe, how I can make 2 different things from 1 batch of blueberries. And this is the next day, and I had to make breakfast for dinner because we wanted to eat some blueberry syrup. And so I went ahead and made up some homemade biscuits and some homemade pancakes so that we could use our blueberry syrup and blueberry butter. And I love breakfast for dinner. It's one of my favorite things to have for dinner. And so I got the biscuits out of the oven. And these turned out really good. These are my go-to biscuits. They look pretty good. And then I've got some turkey bacon. I'm also going to cook some turkey sausage that I've got in the pan right here. I've got a pan going to make white gravy because my husband likes gravy on his biscuits. And we're just getting everything cooked up here. I also make different kinds of pancakes, so I do some chocolate chip, some blueberry, and then some plain so that everybody can have the kind of pancake that they want. And then I've got scrambled eggs and regular over easy eggs that I'm going to be cooking so everybody can have the kind of eggs that they want. And everything's just cooking up on the stove right now, and this blueberry syrup was so good. I love blueberry syrup on pancakes. It turned out perfect, and I really think that this is a really good recipe to be able to conquer 2 things at once and spend less time in the kitchen canning. And so here is our breakfast for dinner all ready. Everybody can pick whatever they want, and everybody really enjoys this dinner. So I thank y'all for watching, and I'll talk to y'all on the next one.